Learning English with English Faculties.
Welcome to the Explainer. Have you ever just stared at an English word you've written down and thought, there is no way that looks right? Trust me, you are definitely not alone. For a lot of us, English spelling feels, well, incredibly frustrating. It feels totally unpredictable, like you just have to rely on rote memorization, and honestly, sometimes it's downright chaotic. But what if I told you that the way we spell words isn't actually a random mess, but a highly systematic code just waiting to be cracked? It's true. The data actually completely busts the myth that the English language is a chaotic free-for-all. Get this. Linguists estimate that 70 to 85% of English words actually follow standard spelling rules. That is a massive majority. It means that instead of relying purely on visual memory or blind guessing, we can absolutely learn to decipher the code. So today, we're going to empower you by tackling one of the most notoriously tricky yet common parts of that code. Okay, let's dive right into this. Think about the K sound for a second. How exactly do you spell it? Sometimes it's a C, sometimes it's a K, sometimes it's a CK together, and occasionally it's just a C hanging out all by itself at the end of a word. It feels like total guesswork, right? But I promise you, there are highly systematic, reliable rules behind this elusive sound. We're going to break them down step by step, starting right at the front of the word. Let's focus on how to choose between the letters C and K at the very beginning of a word. You go to write something down. The very first sound out of your mouth is K, and your pen just hesitates. Do I write C? Do I write K? Well, the secret to making the right choice actually lies in the letter that comes immediately after it. Educators famously call this spelling convention the cat/kite rule. Here's the exact breakdown. To spell the K sound at the beginning of a word, you use a K before the front vowels, E, I, or Y. On the flip side, you use a C before the back vowels, A, O, U, or before any consonants. Now, if trying to remember front and back vowels feels like a little too much phonics jargon, there's a wonderfully catchy mnemonic device to lock this in. K takes I or E, C takes the other three. It's simple, it rhymes, and it literally eliminates the guesswork on the spot. K takes I or E, C takes the other three. Let's look at this rule in action so you can really anchor it in your mind. Take words like kite, kelp, key, kid, and the name Ken. They all have that starting cuss sound followed by an I, an E, or a Y. So, following our rule, they absolutely must start with a K. Now compare that to words like cat, cot, cup, crib, cool, and cusp. The cuss sound in these words is followed by an A, O, U, or a consonant, like that R in crib. So, they automatically get a C. Once you see this pattern clearly, it is almost impossible to unsee it. Okay, now that we've totally mastered the beginning of the word, let's sharply pivot to the second half of the problem. What happens when you hear the k sound at the very end of a one-syllable word? Now, your choices have shifted. You're generally choosing between spelling it with a CK or just a K. And just like the beginning of the word, the secret to this choice depends entirely on the vowel that comes right before it. But before we apply the rule, we need a super quick refresher, because knowing the difference between a short and long vowel is the absolute crucial key here. A short vowel is when a vowel makes its crisp, clipped sound, like a, e, a. Think of the a in apple, or the I in igloo. A long vowel, on the other hand, is when the vowel simply says its own alphabet name, a, e, I, o, u. Think of the I in acorn or the O in ocean. Got that distinction? Awesome. Now we can solve the puzzle. Let me guide you through the exact mental checklist you need to use. Step 1. Listen to the sound immediately preceding the ending ka in a one-syllable word. Is it a short vowel? If yes, it is spelled with CK. Step 2. Is it a long vowel, a diphthong like the oo sound or a consonant? If yes, it is spelled with just a K. There's actually a fantastic little jingle educators use to drill this in. Long spelling right after short vowel. Since CK uses 2 letters, it's considered the longer spelling, acting like a little protective wall right after that short, quick vowel sound. It's really fascinating how perfectly the vowel dictates the ending here. Think about words like duck, sick, kick, sock, back, and neck. Every single one of those words has a short vowel sound right before the K. So, following our jingle, long spelling right after short vowel, they all end in CK. Conversely, consider bake, soak, and seek, which have long vowels or vowel teams, or task, bark, and milk, which have consonants, an S, an R, and an L, right before the K. Because they do not have that immediate short vowel, they're spelled with just a K. Simple as that.
But come on, English wouldn't be English without a little plot twist, right? Let's add a layer of depth and talk about what happens when words get a little bit longer. Learning this exception will honestly save you from a very common spelling mistake. So here is the twist. When a word has more than one syllable, what we call a multisyllabic word, and it ends in a k sound, we actually drop the K and the CK entirely. Instead, it's most often spelled with just a C. Take examples like frantic, fantastic, maniac, zodiac, basic. If you were just blindly following the previous rule, you might hear the short I in frantic and be super tempted to use a CK. But because the word has multiple beats, multiple syllables, the English code tells us to rely on just the letter C to close it out.
So what does this all mean? The crucial point is why taking the time to understand these structured rules actually matters. It fundamentally shifts our whole perspective from frustration to empowerment. By learning rules like the cat/kite rule for the beginning of words and the short vowel CK rule for the end of words, we replace random guessing with logical decoding. This is exactly how we improve spelling and reading confidence, proving definitively that English spelling is a highly decipherable code, not just some random list of words you have to memorize. And honestly, once you realize these rules are there, you start seeing them absolutely everywhere. It's a real game changer for how you interact with text. Which leaves me with this final provocative thought for you to ponder. What other secret spelling codes are hiding in plain sight in the words you read every single day? Keep your eyes open, stay curious, because the more you look, the more of the code you're going to uncover. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.